You're listening to Miss Style, Strength, and Grace with Deidra Murphy. This is your one-stop shop for style, fashion, health, and fitness. Deidra's passion is to help empower women to reach their fullest potential, both inside and out. Deidra and her guests will be discussing how to develop your style, health, and lifestyle hacks to energize your day and inspire you to keep reaching higher levels of success. Deidra is a professional fashion stylist, health guru, and Mrs. Washington 2017. It's time to get open and honest with Deidra.
Well, hello and welcome, lovely. I'm so excited to have you on today's episode. And just a little warning, I'm going to get real open and real honest today and share some personal information about myself that you're probably going to be surprised about, but we're going to be talking about some, health things like female problems and hormones. And, if you're maybe listening to this with children around, you might want to think about listening to this privately. I'm not going to be anything explicit in nature, but I am going to be really talking about female struggles and specifically about hormones and menstrual cycles. So just a little fair warning for you. If you follow me on any of my social media, on every Monday, I do what I call Monday in the Mirror. And it's not so much about actually looking in the mirror, outfits, that kind of thing. It's actually what I like to talk about as far as personal reflection. So usually I reflect on maybe the last week or the weekend and just lessons learned and whatever's going on in my head. And about a week ago, I did my Monday in the Mirror, and I kind of announced to everyone that I'm doing a ketogenic lifestyle. I just decided to fully dive into ketosis. Well, hopefully end up with ketosis as a result, which just means that you're producing ketones, which means you're in fat burning state. But the ketogenic lifestyle, you hear a lot of people say like, oh, I do keto or I do paleo or I do whatever. Keto, I see it truly as a lifestyle and not a diet. I'm not doing it in an effort to lose weight. Although if that's a byproduct, I'm not going to be mad about that. Who wouldn't want to lose weight? But in reality, I'm doing it for my health. So what is keto? And a quick summation, and there's so much more to this, and we can have a whole other podcast just where we talk about how to do ketosis or ketogenic living successfully. But it means most of your calories are coming from a high fat intake. So about 70% of your calories coming from fat, a moderate amount of protein. It depends on your goals and your activity levels, and low carbs. This is the key, is keeping less than 50 grams of net carbs a day. So all of your carbs are coming from veggies, fruits, and a little bit maybe from like nuts and that kind of thing. But there's no grains, no starchy carbs like potatoes, even beets. And you still have to be kind of careful with starchier or sugary fruits like apples have a high carb load. So I've cut down a lot on my apple intake, which is really sad for me because I do love apples, but I found that I can kind of fit it into my day if I maybe just have like half an apple rather than the whole thing. Now, don't tell my in-laws that. They are apple farmers and they know how much I love apples, but sorry, Bob and Deb. Anyway, if they're listening. So that's the big overview of ketogenic lifestyle. So honestly, it's really not that big of a difference for me, but I'm really upping my fat intake and eliminating the grains and the higher carb foods. So for me, the sweet potatoes, that's been a hard one to give up, but I think I see it as an end result. And after about 3 months of doing this lifestyle, then I can kind of switch to doing more carb cycling. So probably 2 days of higher fat intake and 1 day of more of a higher carb intake where I can have maybe a grain or something like an acai bowl, something with higher carbs on that third day. Now, I've heard of ketogenic and keto for a while, but I really resisted trying it out. And I finally made the decision to start it when I found my big why. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is finding the big why and why I needed to make that decision to fully dive into a ketogenic lifestyle. So let's go through the whole story from the beginning. I like to do that. And really talk about why I need to incorporate this into my life. So 3 years ago, and I didn't realize this until I was actually prepping for this podcast episode, because I've been saying in my head, like, oh, it's been about 2 years that I've struggled with this now. No, it was in 2015. So it was April, right around my birthday, actually, of 2015, when I thought I was pregnant because I lost my period. We were actually vacationing with some friends of ours in Costa Rica. And at the time, I was in preparation mode for my first time competing at Mrs. Washington. So this is as I'm coming off of the whole insomnia, depression battle. I've started to lose a little bit of the weight. I was probably down by like 15 pounds or so. So I was on a good progress, good track. And I was doing it healthy. I wasn't quite monitoring and tracking all my food yet. I had never really done that, but I was keeping pretty low carbs. I wasn't having a ton of fat, but like higher protein than I was normally used to, just to build muscle and overall like get to my goal of just getting back to my normal weight. Like that was what it was for me. It was not about like, oh, I want to be a certain amount of body fat, or I want to be, this particular size. Like it was just like, I wanted to be back to normal. That was my goal. And like I said, we were in Costa Rica vacationing with some good friends of ours, and it actually was during my birthday. I mean, we didn't plan to go on vacation for my birthday, but just with dates aligning with our friends and picking a time of year to go on vacation, it happened to be right around during my birthday week. So like I said, I was in Costa Rica, and one of the days we were down by the beach. We were actually learning how to surf. That was fun. And Jessica and I decided to get snow cones one of the days. Yeah, not the best decision as we look back on that. The guys didn't have any of the snow cones. And about maybe the next morning, I think, like Jessica and I just were not with it. We were both like, oh, do you feel weird? I feel weird. I don't know about you. My head really hurts. And lo and behold, she and I got sicker than dogs. Like it was probably the biggest damper on our vacation. Luckily, it was only about a 24-hour bug that we both had, and the guys did their own thing, but they were also taking care of us. And, at one point in the afternoon, I was like, go, like, have fun, go to the beach, go relax. And, trying to tell poor Chris to go have some fun while I'm laying sicker than a dog in our bed in Costa Rica. But anyway, I was supposed to start my period that week. And I've been very, very regular with my cycles. Like I could predict it down to the day, usually sometimes even the time of day that I was going to start. And that wasn't even being on any sort of pill or anything. I had stopped taking the pill numerous years prior just because of overall health reasons. And like I said, I could predict it down to the day. So I knew I was supposed to start my period while we were in Costa Rica. I had all my prep stuff. I had all my, lady products with me, and I didn't start. And at first I was kind of freaking out, but then I was like, you know what? I'm sick. Who knows what happened? And so I was expecting it to come a couple days later. Well, couple days go by, no Aunt Flo coming to town. A couple weeks go by, still nothing. About a month goes by and I still had not had a menstrual cycle. So I started taking all the at-home pregnancy tests, and I was a little bit worried because, I wasn't planning on getting pregnant. Chris and I were married at the time, but I wasn't in efforts to try and get pregnant. I didn't see it on the plan at that age. And I was also prepping for my first time at Mrs. Washington. So I was like, it wouldn't be the biggest deal if I go and compete, because it was only like 2 months away. So it would be easy to hide it. But then I was like, well, then that puts me like 5 months to 6 months pregnant or so at nationals if I were to win. I kept kind of monitoring the situation, and all my at-home pregnancy tests just kept saying negative. So I was like, well, if I am pregnant, like, this is weird because all the tests say negative. I'm not gaining any weight. I was keeping the weight loss off and actually still continuing to lose weight. So I just kind of let it go and figured it would come back when it was meant to. And that was 2015. And that first attempt at Mrs. Washington, I got back to my normal weight and I felt really good being on stage. That was the first year that I tried, and I made first runner up. So the whole experience was awesome. And I still didn't have a period back. So, go on with the rest of my year. Like 2015, I still kept about that same weight. But then the insomnia started to come back again that fall and holiday time and Christmas time. And then that's when I started to spiral down again, and I got in a really negative place in my life, and I started to put the weight back on. So first it was like 10 pounds, and I was like, okay, it's only 10 pounds. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Then we went on a trip to Italy, and I figured, you know what? Screw it. I'm already 10 pounds up. When in Rome, I'm going to eat all the pasta, all the gelato that I want. And I had that mentality of like, better cram it all in now, because as soon as I get back to the States, I'm going to stop and I'm going to be back on track and it's going to be fine. So that's a really poor place to be. And it's a really destructive place to be. And I didn't realize how self-destructive it really was at the time. And it's something I still battle with. Actually, on last night's Monday in the Mirror on my Facebook, I talked about how I still struggle in social situations with not like cramming all the food in my mouth. Anyway, back to my story. So we get back from Italy. First, I went over there about 10 pounds up. Then I came back another 10 pounds up, right? Like I literally shoved all the pasta, bread, carbs, gelato, anything in my mouth that I could, cheese, wine, etc. And then here I am, already suffering with my insomnia that's kind of coming back again. And honestly, it was probably because I was making poor decisions in my health overall, and it was affecting my anxiety. And two, my sleep is affected by how much sugar I intake. I know that if I have a lot of sugar at night or even earlier in the day, I probably won't sleep well that night. So come back from Italy. Now I'm 20 pounds up going into the holiday season. And I said, screw it yet again. I'm just going to eat all the Christmas cookies that I want and eat everything at all the holiday parties that I want. And then January 1st, I'm going to turn it all around. So by January 1st, I ended up being about 35 pounds heavier than my normal weight. And with that weight gain, suddenly my period came back. So I'd put on 35 pounds. I think actually at my worst, that was when I got to the 40 pounds heavier. And by January 1st of that year, so that would have been 2016. And then again, I struggled to lose that weight because I had turned my body into a carb burner instead of a fat burning machine. And I was running only off of like sugar and carbs. Plus that was triggering the pre-diabetes. And I just had ruined my metabolism, honestly. Self-destructive, like I said, really bad place. But my period came back. Honestly, for maybe 2 or 3 months, I had my cycle in and off. Like, I mean, it was kind of around, and 1 month would maybe be like a full menstrual cycle. The next month would be kind of just spotting, and then it would come back the next month, a full female cycle. So I figured, well, this is good, but now I am in prep mode again for a pageant. So by, I think March, I made the decision to sign up again for Mrs. Washington to compete another time. And so then it started the whole like, okay, I got to get back on track and losing the weight. And at first I could not lose the weight. It was really hard. And I had to go on this complete elimination protocol. And it was very severe because I had been diagnosed with prediabetes. It also meant major supplements and a lot of low fat just to get my body to feed on the fat that I already had stored. And it was really hard. I don't want to go down that road again. And anyway, so started to kind of lose the weight again, maybe dropped like 10 pounds at first, and was slowly starting to lose the weight because the pageant was coming up in July that year, so 2016. And as I started to lose the weight again, guess what? Because I had dropped my fat intake so much and so dramatically, so quickly, I lost my cycle yet again. So again, I got most of that weight off. I actually didn't get it all off by Mrs. Washington 2016. And that was actually the year I didn't win, obviously. And I had only made top 10 that year. I didn't even make top 5. Again, that was hard on my mental approach. And, there's a previous podcast where I talked about the things that I've learned by losing. So go back and listen to that one if you haven't yet. And because I was still in this negative situation, I didn't have a period. And then I finally started to get it back again that fall. Again, my husband actually was making my smoothies for me in the morning, and he secretly started putting a whole avocado in my smoothies. And I got in a really bad spot and I gained a lot of weight again, not as much as I had the year prior, but it still put on about 20 pounds. And, it did help by having extra fat in my smoothies that I wasn't accounting for and I didn't know about. God love him, but he was trying to help my body reset and get my hormones back. And then let's enter to 2017. So this is about a year ago. I think I got a period back for maybe 2 or 3 months. And then I was like, all right, no, I'm going to go and do Mrs. Washington one more time. This is going to be third time is the charm. I'm going to dive in. And I went back into losing weight. And again, I've been eating fats and I was eating fats, but it wasn't enough. I was only eating about maybe 30 to 40 grams of fat per day, which is really low for women in general. And I made my physical goal for Mrs. Washington. I got back down to the normal weight that I usually am, but then I won. So I won Mrs. Washington 2017 in May of 2017. Then I had about, May, June, July, 3.5 months to then take my levels of fitness up to the next level for Mrs. America. I figured, you know what? I'm at my normal weight. I really want to take this up a notch and just see where my body can take me. See what level of fitness I can get. And I really wanted to hit 10% body fat. Definitely doable. And I did it, but it meant I kept my fat grams really low. I was eating a decent amount of carbs and they were still coming from, healthy carbs like rice, quinoa, sweet potatoes, and a higher level of protein too, because I was lifting weights so much. And so we wanted to be able to make sure my body could sustain through those workouts and then I could fuel my workouts with a higher carb amount. And it just meant, like I said, a very low amount of fat. It worked. I got to my goal. I hit 10% body fat. I felt amazing on stage at Mrs. America. And I felt like I could not have sculpted my body in a way without doing that. And it was an amazing experience to be able to see what I could really do with my level of fitness. But after Mrs. America and I didn't win and I got back kind of to normal life back here in my home state, I figured I would get my period back probably within a few months. I gained about 10 pounds back after nationals, which is really normal. And I didn't mind that at all. I hit a weight lower than I had actually ever been, even in high school. I got more down to a middle school weight by the time of the final night of pageants at Mrs. America. So gaining 10 pounds on top of that, I still felt totally fine. And my jeans and clothes still fit and I feel healthy. But it hasn't been enough to trigger my hormones. And fat is an essential for hormone regulation, especially for women. Not only does it, fuel our hormones, but our brain runs on fats. It encases all of our brain cells. And this is what led me to figure out my why. I had to want to get my fat intake up. Nationals and Mrs. America ended back in August of 2017, and here it is now 2018, and I hadn't been willing to up my fat intake. I have been scared of having too much fat for the fear of gaining weight again. When you fluctuated for 3 or 4 years now with weight gain and being in that negative health space and that head space, and being in that self-destructive mode and gaining, 40 pounds and then losing it in that spring and then gaining 40 pounds again the next winter and losing it in the spring. I've been scared the last 6 months that if I upped my fat intake, I would get back to that point. And that was my focus. How would I look in a swimsuit? It was all me-centric. And as we've started 2018, I'm still at my normal weight, which that itself can be a podcast right there, just reflecting on the fact that this is the first time in about 5 years I've started a new year without a goal of I need to lose 30 pounds. So that's a fantastic place to be. But I had to want to look at my goals and my life and my family. I realized that I do want to start having children. I'm 30 years old, going on 31 this spring. And who knows how long it can take to actually get pregnant, even when you start trying and you start actually wanting to invest in that. And I had to want it bad enough. I had to stop thinking of myself and my shallow reasons for not consuming enough fat. Did I want to stay skinny still not having a period, and end up without ever having kids of my own. You know, as convenient as it has been for the last 3 years to not have to worry about a female cycle, you know, that's not actually worth it. I mean, yeah, going on a tropical vacation and not have to worry about a period cropping up during the middle of your week when you're wearing swimsuits, that's quite nice, but not worth it in the end. And a lack of a period also meant other hormonal issues, especially one that's been affecting my marriage, which is my lack of sex drive. So yeah, sorry if I'm being too honest with you, but that is just an important part of marriage. And I feel like I've been just going through the motions with my husband, and it absolutely sucks. For a long time, I didn't realize how related my fat intake, my hormones, and my sex drive was, but I think it makes sense from a instinctive and just pure, you know, animal nature, I guess, or evolutionary nature. If my body thinks that I'm not in an optimal environment to host and grow a child, then my body and my brain is going to avoid the thoughts, behaviors that would promote the growth of one. So I think it comes down to my body trying to protect itself and say, you know, you can't handle having a child right now, so we're going to keep your brain from focusing on the things that might possibly lead to that. And I had to think about my spouse. You know, Chris is 4 years older than me, and he desperately wants to have kids and start a family, especially because he doesn't want to be, you know, super old as we start to get the kids out of the house again and start to enjoy our retirement years, our golden years, so to speak. You know, not that we think that we won't enjoy life between now and then, but, you know, you don't want to be in a diaper and trying to throw a baseball with your kids. And I had to think about him, and I kept telling myself, and I kept telling him, that the reason I wanted to wait for kids was that I wanted my business to get to the point where it was first. I wanted my business and my styling business to get to a point where it was sustainable, so then I could have kids and still be a working mom, and my business could kind of take a back burner, so to speak. But you know, I kept saying that, like, oh, my business is my baby right now. And as true as that is, and as much as I want that still to be growing and flourishing, and I kept telling myself that the kids thing can wait, you know, how long is too long? And the business may be a portion of why I've been hesitant to start, but the core of the matter was that I was being selfish and really shallow. I was more concerned about looking cut and super lean than fostering a healthy environment for childbearing. And now that I've come to light about my goals and my wants in life, honestly, my mindset shifted instantly. I had to want to have kids bad enough. I had to want to have my sex drive back and worry less about being at 10% body fat. And the good news is about doing like a ketogenic lifestyle is that a lot of people experience fat loss and weight loss by keto living. By using fat for fuel instead of carbohydrates, most people do actually turn into a fat burning machine. Now, do I hope that happens? Well, heck yeah. But more importantly, I want to get my hormones working for me again. I want to start ovulating again and eventually start a family. I remember I was in kindergarten, and actually we were living in Australia at the time, but you know, you're at circle time and they start going around the circle and asking all the kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And most of the kids are saying things like doctor, astronaut, you know, veterinarian, whatever. And it gets to me and I said, I want to be a mommy. And the teachers laughed and giggled, and then so did the kids around me, you know, as the teachers were laughing at me. And they said, oh no, sweetie, like, what do you want to do for a job? And I said, that is what I want to do. I want to be a mommy. My whole life, especially by kindergarten, my mom was a stay-at-home mom for majority of my childhood until I think middle school. She finally went back to work. And I had just seen how loving and devotional she was to my brother and I, and how much she took care of us, and how much of a job it really was. And I admired that so much into her that as a kindergartner, like, that's what I thought was a job, and I really wanted to do that. And it's still always been a goal of mine, but honestly, I've put it on the back burner for the last, 5 or 6 years. And moms truly do have the best job, but it is the hardest job on the planet. My goal in telling you all of this is so that you can understand not only why I'm changing things in my life, but hopefully so that I can educate others about a ketogenic and healthy lifestyle and true health and wellness. Now, for you, that might not mean going full into ketogenic lifestyle. It can be sustainable for some and not sustainable for others. But other than that, my goal for those of you that are listening that might be struggling with hormones, and maybe it shows in other ways. Maybe you're struggling with insomnia, sleeplessness, depression, or even weight gain, and you just feel like there must be a better way out there. Believe me, this isn't as good as it gets. There are ways to help fuel your system, balance your hormones naturally, and do it in a way that not only makes sense, but is sustainable for your life. But you have to find your why first. Wanting to look good in a bikini might be good enough to get you going on your journey, but it won't be enough to keep you there. It starts with your why. Is it your kids and being healthy and energized for them? Maybe to stop the cycle of obesity in your family, diabetes, or even heart disease? Or maybe it's to spark your marriage and your love life again, so you have the marriage that your kids want to emulate. Whatever it is, start by finding your why. Start writing it down, dig deep, start the process of self-discovery. Maybe it's a journal, maybe it's, meditation, prayer, whatever works for you. Start discovering your why. I had to become crystal clear on why I was starting this lifestyle, and that's when it became big enough for me to dive in. I know that losing weight and starting a journey like this to get yourself healthy can definitely be tough. So as an opportunity for you, I would love to have you join me on this journey. If you check out my website called thesynergychallenge.com, you can join me on this journey for free for 7 days. Check it out. Check out all my resources. And I will be sure to put that link in my show notes for today's episode. As always, I love you all and thanks for listening.
Hey ladies, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. To help empower more women, please be a doll and rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. For show notes and other free resources we mentioned today, go to styledbydeidra.com.